Hello everyone, this is Singh 𝐂𝐲 and today we will be discussing TrueCaller system design. How can you design systems like TrueCaller? So let's first understand what TrueCaller is and then we will actually move towards its design. So TrueCaller is basically your online phone directory. Let's say whenever you get a call, you want to see whose number is that. It could be possible that that number is not saved in your contact list, but still you want to know whose number is that. I want to know uh, from which person I'm getting that particular call. So how can I do that? Truecaller should help me with that. If I install Truecaller application into my phone, Truecaller will help me to identify a person, identify the caller, so that I can take any action. Like let's say I want to reject that call, or if there are any spam calls. So let's move on to the functional requirements. What all functionalities we want to support as part of this system design, as part of this when we are designing the Truecaller. So your first requirement will be the basic requirement that you want to display the caller ID for the incoming call, right? So any call you are getting, it could be possible that that number is a contact. So if that number is already saved in your contacts, it's easier to display like whose call is this. But if it's not saved as a contact, still I want to know who the caller is. So Truecaller should me help with that functionality. Number two functionality we want to support is search with a phone number to retrieve user details. Now whenever I open the Truecaller app, there should be a functionality that if I enter a particular number, let's say 77xxxxx, so if I enter this number, Truecaller should help me whose number is this. I should be able to get the user details for which is associated to this particular number. So this is the second functionality we want to support. Identify spam callers. So many times we get spam calls which we don't want to get. The spam call could be anything, like anything which we don't want to accept, or anything like, let's say, irrelevant offers you are getting, and like anything related to spam, you just want to block them, or you just want to specifically identify them. Then you can decide if you want to pick them up or not. So Truecaller should give you a sign that this is a spam call. It is reported by many of the users, so it is a spam call. You can like either accept it or either reject it. So that functionality we want as part of our Truecaller application. Fourth functionality is add user profile. So whenever you create a profile on, like whenever you install the Truecaller application on your phone, let's say you have installed the Truecaller application, now you should be able to create your user profile. Let's say this is my number 77xxx, so this number is associated to Mandeep Singh, so I should be able to create a user profile. Now this profile basically helps to verify a user also, right? If there is a number associated to a specific business, then I will know that this number is verified this particular business, so it is safe to accept that call. Let's say from a specific number, an authenticated number of SBI Bank. So if I'm getting a call from an authenticated number, from an actual number of SBI Bank, I want to accept it. Okay. So that functionality we want to provide, that a person should be able to create a user profile associated with his or her number and use that profile. uh, Fifth functionality will be add number for any contact number or report spam. So whenever like could have multiple numbers, so you will have a functionality in the application that for that particular number you can suggest the name. Let's say this particular name, so I know that this number is associated to this particular name, so I can suggest Truecaller that this number belongs to this Mandeep Singh person. Okay, and other functionality will be you can also report this number as a spam. I think that this number is spamming me, so to avoid, to help the community kind of thing. Okay, you want to help the community that other person should not get the spam calls, so you can report that number spam, and Truecaller can store that action that this number is reported by this person as a spam, and I can also notify, I can like basically use that information to notify other users that this is reported as spam by other users, so it could be the spam. There is a possibility that this is a spam number. Another functionality, the sixth functionality, is who viewed your profile. This we will not be discussing in this particular design, but our current design will be extensible in a way that you can extend it to support this particular functionality, that whoever views your profile, the user profile which you created here in the in the fourth step, the user profile which you created, now who all are viewing your profile, you can support that functionality. Seventh function we want to support is unlist your phone number. So let's say you don't want your number to be searchable in the Truecaller database. So how can you do that? Like we mentioned that anyone can suggest your name for that particular associated number, but still I don't want my number to be displayed to other users. Basically, I don't want my number to be associated with any name. So you can use your Truecaller API to unlist your number, basically delete that number from the Truecaller database so that it is not suggested, it is not searchable by the other users. Authenticate with Truecaller for any other app. This is a single sign-on kind of functionality we will not be discussing in this particular video, but our current design will be again extensible to support this functionality. It is kind of like sign in with Google, sign in with Facebook. So similar kind of functionality there is provided by Truecaller, that you can sign in by Truecaller mobile number and you will not require any separate authentication for the other applications. Another one is block contact number. So it could be possible that you want to block certain numbers, so it should be feasible or it should be supported by Truecaller. Then other thing is Wi-Fi caller. We will discuss this at the end of the video, like what that is mean and how you can support in your design. So let's move to the non-functional requirements. The first requirement will be like we want to support the high accuracy, right? Whatever names you are suggesting for a particular contact number, let's say this is your 7xxx number, you want this number is associated to Mandeep Singh, right? So you want to display the correct name as far as possible. I want to display Mandeep Singh associated to this contact number. It could be possible that this number was lost and this number was taken up by some other person. In that case, if someone has updated its contacts, or like someone else person suggested another name for that person or other contact, so I should be able to get that information and update my database. And I want to maintain high accuracy for my application, that whenever I search with that particular number, I get a like foolproof name and with least error details. So that's one requirement, and that's kind of like a very important requirement and basic pillar of our system, that we want to give the accurate name details to particular user whoever is getting a particular call, and I want to associate with a name which is true, which is correct, true caller as name suggests. And same goes for the spam callers. I don't want to report spam for the numbers which are not actually spam. I want to report the spam which are actually spam numbers, not like someone reported it out of anger that this is a spam number and I'm displaying to other users that this is spam. So I want my system to have capability to analyze the particular spam numbers so that I display the correct information to other users. System availability, definitely this will go with any application you design. Like you want your system to be completely available for the any of the APIs which you are supporting, any of the functionalities you are creating. Latency is another thing which is important in our case, because whenever you get a call, you want to display the name as soon as you are getting that call. So let's say this is your number, you got the incoming call, and this is for number 7xxx. Now I will call to Truecaller server. This is Truecaller server, and retrieve name for this. So let's say Mandeep Singh was written. Now this round trip operation should be very like in a very minimum time possible, let's say less than 1 second, so that as soon as you get a call, you know that from which person, from who who particular person called me, called on my number, and I can take the action like accepting or rejecting the call. So that's one another important requirement we have. So if we go to the most important requirement in case of our NFR, first and third are most definitely system availability is most also important, because we want our system to be available to support these kind of functionalities. Without our system being available, we won't be able to support these functionalities, right? But talking about, like, let's say our system is available, then we have to ensure that our system operations are performed in a minimum time possible, and we want to give the accurate results to users. Now let's get a basic idea about the capacity estimations. These are the numbers which I took from internet, and they are not like from an official kind of resource, but you will get an idea around how much TPS we want to support, or how much kind of data storage you need to take further actions, and like think on like what the system I am designing should be available for this number of users, and this is the traffic which I want to support, both in case of like search TPS or like updating a particular profile. So these kind of TPS you can uh, refer from these numbers. So these are the numbers. So basically we have 300 million monthly active users. So if we calculate per second TPS, so how many phone calls I am getting? This is the TPS 2084 calls per second. And what is the search TPS? This is the TPS for search, 1620 request per second. Now the phone call TPS, this search TPS is specifically, I believe, to only the numbers I am searching. So let's say I am searching in a particular database for a number, and I should get a name. Now in case of phone call TPS, it could be possible that I don't have that number stored at the contact, and I am going to TrueCaller to get the number. So it could be possible that the search TPS, if you talk about search which is including the incoming call, so the search TPS could be, let's say 1500 from this number, so it will be around 3k TPS per second, right? So this is the TPS we want to basically support for our application, and it should be scalable, like as and when our users are growing, and as and when the TrueCaller is launching to new countries, our server should be able to handle that kind of traffic for the users. Now moving to data persistence, like when I mentioned that we are creating the user profile, or I want to support the search functionality on top of context numbers, you have to basically maintain that information in some kind of data store, right? So how you can think of data persistence, how you will particularly store that data, which particular database you will choose. So I'm going ahead with DynamoDB. We will discuss like why I'm choosing DynamoDB and why you should choose DynamoDB. Basically a NoSQL data store. DynamoDB is NoSQL data store, key value pair. Okay. For caching capability, you can use DynamoDB Accelerator or Elastic Cache, which both are AWS services. So why DynamoDB? One main reason, like one important reason, could be DynamoDB is fully managed AWS service, so you don't have to invest anything. In case of, let's say, infrastructure or maintaining the DynamoDB, you just have to pay for the storage, whatever data you are storing and how much data you are retrieving. So you just have to pay for read and write TPS. You don't have to pay, or you don't have to think about managing that or scaling it. Let's say in case of a database which is being managed by a particular company, initially you created 2 nodes, then for scaling you have to add more nodes. So these kind of things you don't have to take care at your end. You can directly use DynamoDB. DynamoDB has on demand capability, where you don't have to specify anything, read TPS or write TPS. You don't have to specify anything, you just have to store your data, that's all, and you have to pay for whatever you are storing. You can also use provisioned kind of DynamoDB, where you can store where you can like specify read and write support you want, and you can also use provisioned with auto scaling. So there are multiple modes of DynamoDB which you can use, but for like easier purposes, or like we don't want to manage anything, you can use on demand kind of support for DynamoDB. So we just have to worry about the data storage, just you have to worry about the schema you want to create or how you want to query the data, that's all. You don't have to worry about anything about auto scaling or how your system will scale when you move out to another regions or anything related to that. So that's one reason, important reason. Another reason could be like why we don't want to use the SQL data store. If we like, do we have the SQL? There are some certain functionalities or some specific kind of support which is provided by SQL data store. Do we have that kind of requirement? So first requirement could be like, do we want support for ACID? No, we don't want support for ACID. We are good with uh, kind of eventual consistency, or we are good with, we don't want strong transaction support, that's all. So we don't want strong transaction, so these points don't hold for us. Do we have any complex queries? So SQL stands for supporting the complex query, like what kind of query patterns we have there, that helps to decide a particular database. So do we have any complex queries? Do our queries require more and more joins? Because if we require that, no, SQL will be like not so good database for that use case. So both of these use case we don't have. So we have a strong opinion that we can go ahead with the DynamoDB database. Similarly, you can also choose to use Cassandra or let's say MongoDB. Moving to the third point, so this is related to, so if you see about context, right, there could be possibility that you are like Mandeep has some contact store as user. This particular user, let's say Sham, then this particular Sham contact is stored in Mandeep's context. Now this Sham can have any other contacts, let's say Ram. So do we need such kind of relationships? There could be contacts which are interlinked to each other. I have one contact, A has contact of B, B has contact of C, C has contact of D, so something like that. But do we require that kind of structure? Like why we are rejecting a graph database? Whenever you think such kind of scenarios, like there are connections in building, but do we require that kind of support? No, we don't require that kind of support like Facebook has. They have to maintain the interaction, they have to maintain the relationship between the different people, and how, like let's say I want to get mutual friends, but we don't want such kind of functionality in our TrueCaller application. So DynamoDB is the best for our use case. These are the DDB tables which I created. So two main tables we should be able to support our use case. Like I will share this document with you on LinkedIn, and as well as I will upload this document on GitHub, so you can refer that, and if you see that there are any suggestions or it can be improved further, this comes more in LLD, but I have tried to capture all the requirements and all the query patterns so I want to support, and it should be feasible by using these two tables. So you can suggest anything related to how you can improve it, or like if there are any schema changes you want to suggest, definitely please do that and we can improve on it. Okay, so how does our application works on incoming calls? So this is the basic functionality, like the main functionality. Whenever I'm launching a TrueCaller application in a new country, this is the first functionality I want to provide. Like there can be top-notch other functionalities which come on top of it, but the main functionality of TrueCaller is identify the caller ID for a particular number. Okay, so whenever you are getting a call, I want to identify who this number is associated to, how that particular functionality will work in English. Let's understand that, then we will move to actual system, like how you can actually design those queries and how your systems will work internally to support that kind of query. Okay, so there could be two possibilities. Like whenever you are getting an incoming call, let's say you are getting an incoming call, now there could be two functionality. One is that number is stored as a contact in your phone book. Okay, other could be this is not a contact. So these could be only two possibilities for a particular number. So if it is stored as a contact, I don't want to query the TrueCaller database. I want to display the name, whatever the name is in the incoming call. But if it's not a contact, then I will go to TrueCaller database and then retrieve the user details if I can find. If I can't find, then I can't do anything. I can just request the user, if he knows the person, please update the name so that I can also update my database. But uh, in case it's not a contact, I will go to TrueCaller servers and try to find who this number is associated to. If I'm able to find that, I will display that name to the user, and user can take any actions like accepting the call or rejecting the call or just ignoring the call. Okay, so this is how your incoming basic functionality work. Now let's move on to the actual system, how you will design that system, and we will discuss each and every component in like kind of detail. So let's try to discuss it and let's try to understand it, how you can solve this particular problem. Okay, let's move to the system now. So this is your TrueCaller application. And you will have some sims installed in your phone. Now I have to identify those SIMs. Whenever I open the TrueCaller application, I will display that you have these two numbers, which number you want to register with the TrueCaller. Now whichever number is selected, I will get all the details for it. Like I will ask the user to provide all the details, like let's say first name, last name, the email and phone number. Definitely the user selected. Then there could be other details. Since user is connected, I want to know the IP, want to know the location and any other metadata I can collect from the user. So these are the kind of details I will pass as part of this new registration API. Now this new registration API will be invoking a lambda. Okay, you can assume that this is a one domain which we have exposed to the application users, and this is your load balancer. Now I have created a single load balancer, but you can assume that each and every application will have their separate load balancer. In case of AWS Lambda, you can see like you can either use load balancer, you can also use API gateway. API gateway is best fit for any of the managed services. So for AWS Lambda, instead of application load balancer, you can also use an API gateway, and from route 53 you can route the request to API gateway, which can further route the request to AWS Lambda. And this Lambda particularly, it will invoke AWS step function. AWS function like is more of a usage in scenarios where we want to execute some kind of workflow, like sequence of steps. So in that scenario, AWS function is helpful, and each and every step can be invoking multiple services or single service, and like output of one action can be output of one step can be used as input to another step, right? We specifically use this AWS step function in our fast tech system design. To do check that out, we designed that complete system using that, because there were series of steps which we have to execute, and there were like child workflows and all. So that video will give you more graphs around how, like in which kind of designs we should use, or we should prefer usage of these kind of functional AWS function. In case of AWS, there could be similar functionalities provided by other cloud providers, right? So right here, so there will be two steps in here. First is user verification step. So the number which I have entered, right, the number which I extracted from the SIM, the TrueCaller application, the number which it's extracted, it should be verified. So it could be handled by user verify service. So user verification step will invoke user verify service. Now this user verify service could be our service which we have developed, or we can probably use a third-party application, right? Which will call our phone, like this particular phone, call our phone and get acknowledgement number that I'm getting a particular call, and this is the TrueCaller application which I have opened on my phone. So once I get the acknowledgement, I have like verified the user that the user is correct. Now further you have to store those details. Like once you create the user, once you create the user profile, you will have to update all the details in your DB. So you will have to update the details in the user details DB for that particular number, right? So this is the first thing which you do as part of this as part of your this API, that whenever a new user is registered, you will first verify your number. This is the first step, and then you will actually create the user profile, basically store the details, and then your application will be successfully your user will be successfully registered on TrueCaller application, and user can use other functionalities inside the app. But the first step will be the new user registration. Then comes our background API, sync contacts. Why this is a background API? Because it could be like in first scenario, I want to sync all the contacts. I will basically need the user permissions to access the contacts. But once user provide the permissions to access the contacts, I want to sync all the contacts, like which contact is associated to that name, because that will help me to update my database and know like which number is associated to which user and get all the details around it, right? So that would, like in first scenario, I will be passing all the contacts. In case of second scenario, like whenever a user is adding new contacts, so let's say this particular sync API will be invoked in background once per day, right? Or once per hour similarly. So whatever the frequency is, this sync contacts API will run in background to update, to pass on all the contacts which are newly created, like basically the diff contacts. So you will pass on the user ID and the diff contacts. How this API will work in background is in here we created two tables. One was user details table and one was phone number details table. For user details table, you will store all the user contacts, and for all the contacts which you have, you will update all these details, like what is the phone number, what is the potential username, then is this number marked as spam and spam count, whatever details it could be possible that the contact which I have is already a registered user. So I will update all those details. When we say entity type, it means that is it a person or is it a business. So these kind of details I will update in both of my DB which I have created. So user contact processor, what it will do is it will get all the contacts, and update the user details table that for this particular user these all are the contacts, and further it will also store those numbers in your phone details table, that this particular number is associated to this particular name. That will help to other users whenever they get a call. They might not have stored that contact, so this database can help them to get all the details for that particular number. So how this works is, you will basically publish a message on Amazon SNS. This is kind of let's say distributed queue architecture. You can probably also use Kafka here. You are publishing a message on a particular topic on Amazon SNS, and this is then further this SQS is subscribed to this particular topic, and your best name picker service, what it will do is it will get the new message in the Amazon SQS and process it. What the functionality of this best name picker service? Okay, so let's say for this particular contact 77xxx, I have stored this name as Papa. Okay, this is my father's number and I have stored it as Papa, but in my contacts database I don't want to store it via this name. Okay, now it could also be possible that in my database I am getting the earlier name which is being stored, and this is a better name which I got now, so I want to update it. So basically I have to analyze that which name is better, which name should be updated in our data store. So this best name picker service will run some kind of queries. Let's say we are using a Spark cluster inside it, and for that we are using Amazon EMR. EMR is again a managed service which provides your big data capabilities, like running Spark queries or high queries or anything related to it, right? So this best name picker service will do all that kind of analysis and choose the best name which should be updated in our database for that particular contact, and for each and every contact it will publish a message to SNS, and your data persistence service which we have created, your data persistence service which you have created will get consume that message and update this phone number details DB, right? So this is the particular action, this is the particular like flow for the Singh contacts API, that for each and every contact which I get, I want to update the details. How? So I want to get the best name for it. So that would be the one functionality, or like one kind of a feature of this service, best name picker service, that get the best name for this contact and then store it to the DynamoDB. Cool. Moving on to our another API, block number. So whenever I say that I don't want to get any calls from this particular number, I will block this number. So this API will be kind of like easy one. You will send the number and user ID for which particular user ID this number should be blocked, and you will update your user details DB, and you have your list of blocked contacts, so you can store that. One important thing, like whenever I mentioned that for incoming call, that first you will check in your local database, right? And then you will see like if this number is already a contact. Same goes to the case of blocked number. So instead of querying our database which TrueCaller maintains, I will check in our local cache, local application cache, that which are the contacts, which are the blocked numbers, so that I don't have to query the TrueCaller database, and it will be kind of faster, right? So moving on to another API, search number, which is again another functionality, important functionality, that whenever I enter a number, I want to get who this number is associated to. So this flow could be simpler, that you get the data from any of the cache you are maintaining or from the database, right, from the DynamoDB, and directly get the data and return it to the user application. Another would be suggest name for a contact. So we discussed that it is kind of a community support, that we want help from the users, that they can suggest name for the users. Like Singh Contacts API is the one that we run in background to get all the usernames for what all first name and last name are stored in the particular users directory, users phone book. Another would be like if that person is like the particular number is not a contact for any of the person, so for that person I can ask users, or like if users update that name, it probably I don't want to store that number as a contact, but I want to suggest you Truecaller that this is number is associated to this particular name. So this particular API comes in picture, that I can mention the phone number, what is the suggested name, and what is the suggested entity type, business or a person, right? So this again will go via our best name picker service. It's not like that you suggested a name and I will directly update my database. No, I will first verify it. Is it the best name? Is there any already name stored for this contact, or like the number the name is which is suggested right now is better than already stored names? So I will decide on the queries which I have, like any of the business logic which I have written as part of best name picker service, and this will ensure, or this will make finalize that whether this particular name should be updated or not. If yes, then I will update my DynamoDB. If no, I can probably keep that information in my kind of analytic purposes, or like for future references, that to analyze further if I'm getting any new name, or like any other user is suggesting a new name. So that could help. Like let's say for this particular context, this is getting being used too much times. So this is I suggested that this number is being number belongs to Mandeep, so user one suggested this, right? Now in this case I will not update it because there was no earlier entry. Then now user 2 also suggested Mandeep, user 3 also suggested Mandeep. Now I know that many users are suggesting Mandeep, so this number could be associated to Mandeep, so I will update the DynamoDB. Now there could be possibility that the fourth user comes who have suggested the name as Sandeep. So this API will not work in a way that since you got the new name you will update it. No, again you will analyze it, the new name, whether you should update it or not. If the answer is yes, then I will update it. If the answer is no, then I will not update it. So kind of important API. Report spam. Again, this also works on community kind of support, so user can like help Truecaller to report the number as spam. I'm getting many calls from a number which is not relevant to me, so I can report that number spam, right? So I will give the phone number and any user. These are the like basic details for who particular user is reporting that number as spam, and what is the phone number, right? This will be handled via our spam evaluator service. Okay, one more thing, like I'm not sure if I earlier mentioned, but these numbers, this particular service will have their own load balancers. So I have created a single load balancer, but these numbers will have these services will have their own load balancers, and any of the servers which are there behind, we can take care of it. And each of these services you can assume as particularly ECS Fargate services, and where you don't have to worry about maintaining any of the resources which you keep, right? Okay, moving on. So where were we? Okay, on the report spam. So report spam, you have added the number and who particular user has reported it. Now comes our functionality of spam evaluator service. What spam evaluator service do is, spam evaluator service will analyze, like, is this number is actually spam, and I am not reporting this spam as out of anger, right? So I have to analyze it. Like in case of best name picker service also, we were analyzing it whether it is a best name. Similarly, in case of spam, we have to analyze it whether this number is actually a spam or not, right? So you will get the existing information of this number, like how many times this number was reported spam earlier, right? Whenever you if you have used Truecaller, you see that whenever you get a call, you see that, like, let's say 279 users reported this numbers as a spam, right? So we are keeping that information here in the user details. Spam count, is this number marked as spam, and what is the spam count, how many users have actually reported this number as a spam, right? Okay, so once you have evaluated it, you will update the DB. Like whatever the spam count is, you will basically increase the spam count by 1, and you will also mark it whether like is actually a spam or not, right? Okay, so this is how our actual infrastructure looks like for each of the services. If we talk about availability, I mentioned that we will be using ECS Fargate. ECS Fargate, why? It is again a managed service where we don't have to worry about managing your resources, where you can specify the task minimum and maximum. So your application will be auto scaled as per that, and that's all. You don't have to manage the servers, right? In case of Lambda as well, you don't have to worry about the servers, right? So let's say there comes a security update, so you don't have to worry about it. Let's say my application is deployed in Java or written in Java. So in that case, there was one issue that Log4j is related. So I don't have to worry about the patching and all. So these can be all internally handled via this, and I don't have to worry about the security patches and all kind of managed service. Similarly, we discussed in case of DynamoDB that I don't want to worry about the actually managing of the application. I just want to worry about my business logic, whatever service I want to support, whatever application I am launching, and I don't want to worry about all those parameters. So going ahead with that, right? Now there are some key points which are related to this design. Let's discuss those. System is inclined more towards reactive system manifesto. I will share some documents with you, like what does this mean, but giving you a basic idea. Each service is independent of other services, right? Now let's say this particular service, when we talk about this particular service, this particular service will publish a message, and this message will be consumed by another service. This service is not directly interacting with other services. Okay, and whenever this particular service goes down, let's say this service was this service went down, so in those scenarios the messages will not be consumed, so they will be kept in a queue. Let's say there were some failures inside it, so right, so these messages will be moved to DLQ, so they can be replayed later and consumed further, consumed in consumed once the service is available. So these kind of scenarios can be easy better handled via reactive systems, right? So this is the basic overview of what reactive system means. You want to make your application more reliable and scalable, and you don't want one service to be dependent on other, right? So one service will publish a message. If whichever service is whichever service wants to consume that message will consume that message and take any action on it. Now that particular service will also publish a message. Whichever particular component is interested in that message will consume that message and take any actions whichever is specific to it, right? So that's first point. Another point is usage of local cache. We already discussed that for let's say for incoming calls or for blocked contacts. I'm not calling TrueCaller servers. First, I will check my local database that do I have that contacts actually already stored. So I don't have to go to TrueCaller servers to get the information. I can check in my local cache for that information. Similarly, for the blocked contacts, I can check in my local cache that what all blocked contacts for my what are the contacts which I have blocked, which I don't want to get called for. So I can check in my local cache instead of getting talking to TrueCaller servers, right? Third one is sync contacts API. So this will trigger after a fixed time period. So this we actually already discussed. Fourth point is the current stack design with usage of AWS service TrueCaller. Okay. So all the components which we used here, like ECS Fargate, DynamoDB, then Amazon EMR, Amazon Route 53, Lambda, step function, these all are AWS concepts, like AWS managed services, and these services are provided by AWS. TrueCaller specifically use Google Cloud Platform. So uh, so the name of services will vary, right? So let's say in case of Amazon EMR, you will use some other services which provide this same kind of functionality of running my Spark script, right? So this is just for like kind of information basis. Another one is best name picker service should filter stored contacts such as papa, mummy, and choose more appropriate contact. This actually we discussed, right? If a particular contact is named as papa in my contacts, I don't want to display that name to other users. So my best name picker service should be able to analyze that and filter these kind of names from my database. Unlist contact API. We actually discussed this in the functional requirements, but we didn't added this in our system design diagram. I don't want to clutter the diagram, but this is the kind of simple API that whenever you get this API, you can publish a particular message that remove this entry, and your data persistence service will consume that messages from SQS. This is published to SNS, this is consumed to SQS. Your data persistence service will consume that message and remove that entry, right? So that's it. Now Wi-Fi calling option, we mentioned in our functional requirement that we will discuss this particular attribute, this particular functionality in the end of the video. So let's discuss that. Basically, first of all, what it means. So you might have observed in some cases that whenever you get an incoming call, you will get a notification beforehand only. Like you didn't have right now you didn't get a call as of now, but you got a notification that you will get a call from this particular number. Mandeep is calling you. Mandeep is calling you in 10 seconds, right? How does that work? So let's say, how does that work? It requires the TrueCaller applications to be installed on both the phones, like who is the caller phone and who is the receiver phone. If that's the case, whenever I am placing a call, I will send a notification, right? I will send a notification to TrueCaller service, and this TrueCaller service will send a notification to my receiver phone that there will be a call from this particular number. Now this Wi-Fi connection is faster than your actual phone call which you receive, right? Your phone call connection will be slower than your internet connection, so you will get a notification beforehand that you are going to get a call from that particular number. Now it could be possible that you are connected to the Wi-Fi but your phone is not reachable at that time, so you might get a notification but you will not get actual call. So that might happen as well, but this is how this functionality particularly works, right? Another one is you whenever you if you have use the TrueCaller application, you can also see the availability status of the application, like when was this particular user available last. So you see this there is a green tick that user is online right now. It was this particular user was online 8 minutes ago. So these kind of things you can see in the TrueCaller application. So these are the kind of enhanced functionalities you can provide on top of your basic functionalities which you want to support. Our basic functionalities uh, get the name for a particular contact number. This is the basic functionality. Now you can provide other functionalities on top of it. This could, like Wi-Fi calling was one, this could be the another one. So how can you support this kind of functionality? I will just give you a thought around it. So what you can do is you can maintain a persistent connection with your TrueCaller service. You will maintain a persistent connection with your TrueCaller server, that this is your, let's say, TrueCaller application. This is a persistence connection is maintained, which can be achieved by using server sent events or WebSockets. Okay, if you haven't heard about them, I have created a video about WebSockets, so you can refer that and it will clarify all your doubts. So this is all about we want to discuss today. If there is any feedback, do let me know. हम मिलते हैं यार अपने नेक्स्ट वीडियो में, तब तक के लिए स्टे सेफ, टाटा, बाय बाय।